out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Hello, Tim.
Oh, hi, Ryan.
Hey, good morning.
How are you?
Great.
Good.
Hi. And welcome everyone to episode 28 of Dismembering Horror, the podcast show where Tim Aslin and myself, Ryan McDuffie, are going to talk about, and we do talk about on this show, a horror film. In film papers in college, like the biggest typo, or my most oft typo was flim. I wrote so many flim papers.
Wow.
Yeah, and I turned in so many papers that said flim. So now I'm saying it too. But Tim and I talk about a horror flim, that we want to see, or that you want us to talk about. And what do we talk about therein, Tim?
Well, first we talk about, what the movie was about. And then we talk about what worked for us, and then what didn't work for us, and then just, some fun things of note.
Yeah, exactly. Those are our sections.
Yep.
So stay tuned.
And now this.
There was nothing there.
There was nothing. Oh, okay. Yeah,
right. We don't have a word from our sponsors, and I kind of hope we don't ever, because I don't like that.
Because Ryan hates money.
I hate sponsor. I hate stopping this.
Oh, dude, there is a podcast that I listen to. Actually, there's two in particular that just insert the ad like midstream, and it really is annoying. So
for me, it's more uncomfortable to hear like even these two people I like or this person I like all of a sudden switching modes to talk about a mattress or like a video game subscription service.
Yeah,
like they do it in a way that just feels like it's taking advantage of what I love about them, their themness. I just don't like it.
That's interesting. Yeah,
I don't know.
I just think ad copy sucks.
Yeah. Wait, I've never heard that term.
Ad copy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just like the term for the actual writing of the ad.
It worked back when when the shows were as disingenuous as the ads themselves. So here on the radio hour,
right,
blah, 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 blah. And now a word from us,
Or like during a game show.
Yeah. But we are gonna.
Where are we?
There were our ads. That was an ad talking about how we don't have ads.
Yep.
So yeah, we're gonna talk about
buy our stuff.
A film from 1995.
That's
today. Right. It has conflicting dates, 97, 95, but 95 is when it premiered at a festival. It was released 2 years later.
Oh, okay.
So
I was in high school.
So should we? I want to get into it because what else are we here to do?
I don't know.
So should we get into it?
Gaze at each other.
Well, let's do that.
While we get into it.
While people hear, let's let people listen to us gazing at each other.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Then let's play the trailer.
Okay.
For this film.
Get ready.
Which is called Evil Ed, not Evil Dead. Evil Ed.
This is Edward. He's a nice guy.
I love you too.
I'm Sam Campbell. Welcome to the team. Have a seat.
So, this is the splatter and gore department.
Now he's to cut down on the violence in splatter movies.
I'm doing it for a good cause.
The violence gets to him. He starts to hallucinate. He gets touchy.
Get the hell out of here!
And he gets paranoid.
Come on! Race me to hell!
And the good guy turns evil.
This is dying time!
When his mind blows, anything goes.
Yeah!
There it is.
Yep.
There it is.
And where's our summary?
You know what we're missing from that trailer is connecting the dubbing with the mouths.
Yeah.
Oh, so if you can also and haven't watched the movie, definitely watch the trailer.
Yeah.
Okay, so this movie, here we go. Ready? Summary. Evil Ed is a quaint tale of a lowly editor who is given a job editing out the too graphic scenes from horror films in Sweden. So he's abiding by the censorship board's rules.
Scenes that are too graphic. There's
Right.
more than two.
Correct. Yes. And so he takes this job, and he gets put up in a
chalet.
A chalet, yeah. Yeah, it is a chalet. He gets put up in a chalet by the
Swedish
producer.
Chalet that's in America.
For a series of films called Loose Limbs. And the constant barrage of editing and going over and over and over these graphic scenes plays on his mind to the point of driving him insane.
Insane to the point of hallucinating and harming others.
Yep.
Great.
The end.
Yep.
There we go.
All right. Well, how would you rate it?
It's not for me. This is not my thing. But I get why people like this. I think a lot of people, there's like two eras of your life when you like this movie, potentially. It's like when you're a teenager, you think this is hilarious and awesome. And when you're like 40 and up and you've watched a lot of horror films, you need some sort of like satirical levity.
Maybe you want to revisit that era in your life too.
Right. But for me personally, like, it's just not my thing. So I think it has value and it's funny. So for me, it's a stream.
I had to settle on avoid it.
Wow.
Yeah. Because, so you say like this kind of film, blah, 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 blah.
Uh-huh.
This for me is a step removed from those kinds of films.
Interesting.
I think, for me, this like Bad Taste, Dead Alive, those are going to be the main reference points for this film. Those two early Peter Jackson films. Like I would just, if I ever do have a hankering to watch those films again, like it'd be nice to sort of be able to include this in that lineup. But I think this is a really interesting case of a film that's like, because it's an homage, it's a step removed in itself in being its own success.
Damn.
So I
agree with you.
So if So basically, like, even for me or for you, as far as recommending it, I'd say just avoid it because, and if you're someone who doesn't like these types of films, or meaning the actual ones that it's homaging, like, then you definitely won't like this.
Oh,
and
yeah.
if you're someone like me who those films, like, I've felt sort of like I have moved past them. I don't really feel the urge to revisit them too often. This kind of made me want to watch them again, just to kind of see it be genuine again.
Yeah.
Watch Bad Taste. But I don't know. That's why we'll get into it more. But but that's why I say avoid it in a nutshell. And that's why I think this is going to be interesting to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go right into what worked, because I think I can kind of pick apart why it's a stream.
Great. Okay. And then the one last little thing for avoid it, because I'm trying to give an in summary review. This is an excuse to do that. That was what we rated it. It could have been a really fun 30-minute short, and still could. You could edit it into that.
Yep.
That exists in here, and that the homage would it wouldn't get steeped in its own homage if it sort of had that pacing and relentlessness to it.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
fuck.
Great. All right, so what worked?
What worked for you? What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm, Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
Well, let's talk about what worked for it after I say avoided it.
Okay. So what I've found is that the majority of what worked for me in this is the gratuitous sort of gags, the kills, the injuries, the actual horror, quote unquote, horror sort of like effect stuff. And so what you've just said, I'm like, fuck, you're right. You're basically right. Because I'm not saying what were almost any of the things that worked for me, none of them are really like the movie worked for me. They're all just like little individual things. So, I mean, I could throw out some of those.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in reverse chronological order, his death was incredible at the end.
That to me is the highlight.
Yeah.
His the joke of over gratuity of having his hand blown
over
off.
gratuity, is that a
right? Like it's in other words, the gratuity, the joke is the gratuitousness.
Yeah.
Right? And so they're taking that as far as they feel like they can. Having his hand blown off is awesome. And then him grabbing his arm and having the lower, like his elbow blown off, so he's then holding just his forearm,
yeah,
is so fucking hilariously awesome.
And that was a good example of like, yeah, I do have a few just sort of select moments of what I thought were done well in this film as far as, yeah. Like, I think that there is something to what you said, over gratuitous. It's not just unnecessary.
You're
it's
taking it that one step further into just total absurdity. I fucking love that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realize I'm like, fuck, most of the stuff I like is like any dismemberment. Like when there's Loose Limbs 5 or 6 or whichever one he's editing, and we get the cutaway, and it's a woman on a gurney or whatever, and the doctor, I don't know if he had a name, he's like gonna do a surgery on her leg, and he injects her with, painkiller or whatever, and then he just lops off her ankle.
Mm-hmm.
And he's holding the rubber foot. Like, there's something so funny and stupid about that I really love.
Yeah.
And
just as standalone isolated moments, the immaturity is just kind of lowbrow satisfying.
I think it's, it's like we said, it's tickling that sort of 15-year-old thing of when you go, like when you want to make a haunted house for Halloween, you just want gags, right? You want blood, and you want limbs and eyeballs and just shit that's funny.
You aren't concerned about the bigger picture. Yeah.
No. And so all of those little things in isolation, I was tickled by.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the movie, it's...
Well, I have a few more moments that worked that I think...
It has stuff.
Yeah.
I like... Well,
I was just trying to steer you away from
I know, I felt myself going there. I like Ed most of the time. Yeah, oh man. I love the gremlin in the fridge. God.
Do you want me? Okay,
yeah, throw me some of yours.
Can I jump off of that? Should I talk about the Ed or more select moments?
Let's do Ed.
Okay, so yeah, Ed's performance, and his casting, I thought was pretty great. Especially when it took the turn. That was an interesting thing. It wasn't like a gradual descent into insanity. Just at a certain point in the film, he was all out manic, homicidal, you know? And seeing this actor, who did such a good job being the sort of mild-mannered, meek film technician, all of a sudden explode to his unkempt hair sticking out. Yeah, his completely unbridled, unrestrained.
Yeah.
I thought he was just really fun casting, doing that.
Yes.
Especially with where we got sort of his point of view of what he was seeing. There was something really, I thought, fun and satisfying of he's seeing this person as a deadite or demon or whatever.
Sure.
And then just his reaction to that is just, ah!
Right. Yeah, it's God, it really does. This whole movie kind of sits on a very fine line for me of like, almost.
Well, he became like a superhuman too.
That's right.
Which
That's
was
right.
which was as
I
fun
love
to
that.
see him do.
Like when he's finally been put into the mental hospital or whatever, and he comes out of the anesthesia or whatever, and he's just like single-handedly throwing people around the room. It's awesome. But it also, I think the conceit is that much of that is sort of in his head.
Yeah.
And it's, yes, he is fighting them, but I think that like they do this thing where they kind of flip back and forth between his POV and seeing that the nurse is got like deadite face and then her actual face to show that he is actually strangling a person. Mm-hmm. But like then he throws her across the room, and I think that he's not actually throwing her across the room. It's a little muddy.
Oh, as far as what's part of his fantasy and what's not?
But I think he is actually hurting her.
Yeah.
Because he definitely gets up and grabs
yeah. That feels like it's giving the film too much credit.
I might be. Shit. But either way, I like the kind of, we don't necessarily at any given moment know like what reality we're seeing.
Yeah.
I like the franticness of that and the sort of like...
It does a couple where it like shows, okay, his fantasy is he's in some sort of underground cave cavern system running away from this.
Right.
And then we cut to, no, he's just in the basement.
Right. That's kind of what I mean. And so I actually quite like this device. Mm-hmm. I like the device of we're with the protagonist and we're being given information that for all we know is reality. And then something crazy happens, and then it cuts to actual reality.
Yeah.
And that was just in their head. That device is used really, really well in True Lies. If you remember, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger goes to buy...
Lies.
Lies, yeah. He goes to buy a used Corvette from Bill Paxton, who is pretending to be an agent and trying to sleep with his wife. And there's a moment when they're sitting in the car and Bill Paxton is just being a total douche and Schwarzenegger's like staring at him, angrily. And he smashes Paxton's face, like just back of his hand.
And then it cuts to Bill Paxton laughing.
Yes, that is such a good
Tim, I
cut.
rewound that moment so many times as a kid.
It's brilliant, right? So I love that device and it can be done really fucking well.
Yeah.
This does it a bunch and sometimes to some success. Mm-hmm. Beyond that,
well, just talk about how in his fantasy though, I liked that it wasn't necessarily him fantasizing his ultimate self. It's just that his self in this extreme mode was utterly confident. Like, it's not even a matter of being confident. Like, when he's fighting the robbers and fighting whomever, he's become a sort of force. Yeah. He's not intimidated by guns or getting shot.
Yeah, dude.
Or anything like that.
He fucking slam dunks a head in a fucking garbage bag into the garbage and then fist pumps into the camera.
That's what's satisfying to me is like that kind of extreme shift, because I feel like those mild-mannered people, like, this is who they actually are. It's just that they're so kind of, not that he's necessarily homicidal, but that he is just that kind of like uncaring to what people think of him or whatever. It's less that he, people like that I think care about what others think, and more just about this world clearly doesn't feel set up for me at my genuine most extreme self.
Yeah, and I think that there's something nice to watch about watching a character who is sort of trapped in their own confines of whatever, how they view themselves. Seeing that character liberate from that is fun.
Yeah, especially fighting back against their leader, tormentor, boss figure.
Right, which makes me immediately, and while we were watching, I was thinking of Willard, where I was like, oh, there's a Willard vibe to this. He's sort of a misanthrope, and he's sort of like in his own little burnt, and then he gets to kind of liberate himself from that constraint that he has, and that's fun.
Yeah. So how about more select moments? Can I get back to that?
Oh, hell yeah.
For over Ed. So we started Ed's death at the end. So there were two moments that stood out that I thought actually were like promises. So there was that one at the end, but other just sort of promise of the premise could only happen in this film moments that felt like, oh, these are the description I read of this film. This is it, and it's doing it well. Was when he's not fantasizing, but hallucinating when he's starting to go crazy. Again, though, there isn't like a clear line, but when it feels like it's the area that he's starting to go crazy, he's cutting a piece of bread, I think, and he looks at it and he thinks he's cutting an arm or his arm.
Yeah.
That was good. Okay, we see he's starting to hallucinate, going crazy. And then the other one was the this was even better because it was more specific to the medium of film that he was working with and his specific task of re-editing these scenes. But when he kept rewinding the film over and over and kept hearing the same quote over and over, and then the like monster character saying the quote appeared in the room. Yeah. Like that was a good, okay, because he's witnessing this over and over, this is going to make him go crazy in this way, and we are getting to see it.
Well, and, you know, I really in that moment was like, this is so fucking true. Because if you've ever sat in an editing booth and, like, worked on a cut of something, it is like psychosis, like, inducing at times. Because you are listening to the same shit and rewinding it and like replaying it and nudging it and doing the shit. And you can get caught in a dark, dark hole of going over and over and over and over on it for hours.
I'm pretty good at I switch into total technical mode. I'm good at that. Like,
do you suffer though? Because I've had this happen where like, I'll be doing that for a while, and then I'll be like, it's time for me to like take a break, you know, step away from this, like clear my head, whatever, and like you lay down to go to sleep or whatever, and it is still running. That is fucking insane.
Not necessarily. It's fun.
Oh,
I think God. I know when to take breaks to not be delirious, and then the sort of delirium I pick up on and act on is usually more in a group editing situation.
Okay. No, man, I've gone down the wrong path.
Because when you're in a group editing, it feels to me like you got to acknowledge it in a way that's sort of we're all acknowledging it. But when it's just me, I acknowledge it by saying, this is just technical. Like I just put that out aside, the fact that it's the same line over and over and over. And I kind of almost laugh at it.
It gets stuck sometimes gets stuck in my head like a bad song would, where you cannot let it go.
Yeah.
Oh, it's brutal. So I really felt like that was the realest moment of this whole movie. I was like, that will make you go crazy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, again, so that was good, unique to this film.
Yeah.
Not unique to this film, but a gag I really liked. At the way beginning, the older woman carrying the film cans, in slow motion.
Was it a woman?
I think, yeah. Oh. Pretty sure.
I didn't even know. I just thought it was an old dude.
I'm pretty sensitive. I'm pretty sensitive about ageist jokes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But there was something about this that was just beyond that to me. It was like, this was clearly just actually funny, just for you don't want to pick it apart reasons too much.
Yeah.
And I was hoping for more moments like that in the movie, but it was funny.
Well, the attempt that this movie is making, I kind of give it like a thumbs up for trying.
It was a background gag, right? But there was never, that really wasn't there in any other area of that sort of level of detail happening at you. That makes it almost feel it's a full movie.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, there's a couple other swings and almost hits with that, with when he goes to the producers for the first time and there's all these women in tight dress, mini skirt dresses wandering around, and at one point the producer, one of those women is sort of trying to massage him or whatever, and he shoos her away.
Oh yeah, I did crack up at that.
There's little kind of things in there here and there that I think are kind of just chuckle worthy.
Those are the ones that you condense, that you include, that you keep in when you do the 30-minute edit.
Yeah, for sure.
This wasn't so much a moment, but a thing I liked in it was kept referring to their splatter and gore department. Just the idea of this like mini film studio that has like the splatter and gore department on the 3rd floor cranking out these splatter and gore films.
Yep.
That was kind of funny, amusing.
Yep.
Yeah, the creature design cool. It's always fun to see a sort of
You love a Muppet.
I love a little creature Muppet thing. Exactly. Even if we only ever see it in the fridge. But it's cool. It's like when you make a physical thing, or I guess when you make a digital thing too, you have to commit to a design style.
Definitely.
And just so seeing that, I always get a kick out of.
Well, there was also, even in our like saying what worked, I feel like we're edging towards undercutting all of that.
Yep.
But there are legitimate like so how do I explain this? There's a few shots and moments in this movie where I was like, that's a really good shot and it's well constructed and the lighting is really nice. Particularly there's the moment when I think it's a full-on dream when he is in this sort of cement room with the demon that tells him his task, saying, you need to cleanse these people, or however it puts it. Which demon I'm talking about? It's sort of got a like head wrapped thing. And,
yeah.
Long fingernails, that whole thing. There's some really cool shots, and the fact that you could see the film grain in this.
16 millimeter blown up to 35. It did give it that look of the films it was homaging.
And that, without undercutting it too much, like that scene in particular, I was like, dude, this movie actually is really close to looking really good. But it's its own self-referentialness and its own sort of like, we're trying to be funny, was undercutting that shot construction.
Even how it was shot, you're saying.
Right. So it's like, I was like, what the big question to me is like, if you're going to do this, what can enhance it in a way that is retaining sort of the homage thing and the satire, but not undercutting itself in doing so, which is a weird question.
I think we should get into that.
Yeah.
Once we're talking about.
Yeah. I don't know how to get into it. I don't know the answer, in other words.
Well, we're still on what worked. That's
okay.
all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Another casting I liked was the studio head guy.
Ugh.
Just a kind of like lumbering, kind of interesting faced, ponytailed. But I thought one of the better examples of the Swedes' view of Americans. Like this was one that was it was actually amusing to me.
Yeah.
Versus kind of just weird and off-putting.
No comment.
And then it was funny because watching it, there's so many like pull quotes from actual other films.
Yeah.
But then throughout that there were other handful ones. I forget them. I can't remember them right now or at all. But ones that were felt more like genuine. This is the actual movie having its own sort of line moments. So I'm like, oh cool, I'm enjoying these. I liked these. But then I realized, oh wait, these are probably just quotes I don't recognize from other films. So the quotes that I either were original or I didn't recognize worked for me.
Any non-original thing is what worked for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Possibly original.
I honestly don't have a whole lot more.
I don't have anything else.
Let me see if I can pull something out of thin air. Nope.
All right, what did not work for us?
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
So now to go back to what you were starting to bring up, when homage, as I put it, drowns in itself.
So you actually have that note. That's cool.
It's some examples of that. there were posters on the wall of like Evil Dead 2, The Fly, films like that, Critters.
Yeah.
And your reaction was my reaction, where it is actually and also the quotes. I'll loop the quotes into these, where someone picks up a gun and goes groovy.
Yeah, and yes. Oh, fuck, dude. I mean, it just made me... I was like, fuck you.
It's like, what are you trying to just... And the effect of that was not only off-putting, but then just made me wish I was watching those other films.
Right.
And it wasn't like when you see, what is it, Evil Dead and Nightmare on Elm Street, they kind of have that back and forth of each other's posters in their films, but you're like trying to remember, and because they're in such a way where they're torn up, they're kind of actually in the background.
Yeah,
it's not like they just make a point to like make them obvious in every single shot.
Well, and this is sort of what I think I'm also saying in like the heavy-handedness, I guess, of the homage is like, I think that they think they're being funny.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, at a certain point, you should actually check yourself or have somebody else check your work and be like, dude, that's you jerking yourself off.
Yeah, it's like,
like, stop it.
They can check themselves. Is this making you laugh that this Evil Dead 2 poster is up?
And it's up in 4 different fucking rooms.
Also, it was
just like, stop moving the poster
The world
around.
of the film, why would they have up all these films that they clearly didn't produce? Like, they should have... It could have been a really good excuse to do kind of the funny people thing of all these fake films.
You're right. It's not a teenager's bedroom.
Yeah.
It's a fucking movie studio.
Right.
And so, like, that joke, that type of humor of like, ha ha ha, look how clever we are, does not appeal to me.
Yeah.
So that is probably the biggest
for
me.
To stay on like an example of, or what that makes me think of, those posters on the walls, or what could have been done, those posters on the wall being films that were other films this splatter and gore department produced. Like, that was my other sort of major thing, was the disparity between what he's hallucinating and going through and the films themselves. Like, we have 7 Loose Limbs films.
Right.
And I thought they cared more about the joke of that there are 7 Loose Limbs films, rather than what would have worked better is if they had a variety of types of films that he was being forced to work on. Because, like, he sees a deadite, he sees a creature in the refrigerator, he sees a demon, but never is he working on films like that.
Well, and like another kind of version of that is, I think, similar to what you're saying, or a way to at least broaden the complexity of what you're saying, like that gag. Tropic Thunder does, where it's like you have the Ben Stiller character. He's been in a series of movies that kind of made him famous, but they show clips from each one. He's done like, I forget what the name of the movie parody thing is, but he's done 1 through 15, and they show sort of the trailer for that repeatedly, like the different versions of it, and each one is parodying itself. So you get a differentiation where it's like one of them is just in, today, and then one is like future, and one is space, and one is fire, and one is ice. And so like there's a progression on the joke. This has like, none of the Loose Limbs are progressing or like showing us something different of like, they're just rehashing the exact same thing.
You were giving an example of making fun of parody itself. That's what Tropic Thunder was doing.
They're not even doing that with it, which is sort of, it's just limited in its sort of execution.
It had those moments too where it wasn't just the quotes, it wasn't just the posters, but like the Evil Dead vision. It's like, okay, we see they successfully pulled off the the camera point of view zooming Evil Dead vision, Demon Force vision. But it's like, that was, again, it was never in a film that we watched. So if he was editing an Evil Dead spoof, and then that happened, we would get that sort of crossover. But now it just sort of induces that same kind of eye-rolling, I'm over it reaction for me.
Yeah, and I mean, even another thing, what I thought you might have said just now is, with the posters, I guess this is sort of the same point, just a different way to execute it. like, I would have been cool with the posters being parodies of the famous movies. So, you know, if it's Critters, that's an iconic poster. Like, we recognize
Have it be
that.
creatures.
Yeah, have it be shitters, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like make a joke out of that to show that these are the type of films that they're doing, that they are this sort of, you know, bullshit rehash. This exists, right? There's like Transformers and Transmorphers, right? Like, that company exists that makes those, and it's a kind of just a bullshit dodge for them to try and fool a grandma into renting a thing for their son or buying it for the, you know what I mean? It's like whatever that device is, but that exists. So like, play on that.
Yeah.
But they don't go the sort of, I think there's what's it called? There's wheat to be tilled or whatever. That's probably not the expression.
I get it though.
But you know what I mean? There's more that you can do with this, and they kind of, I don't know where they fall short. It's like you're exactly right in saying that you could condense this whole thing down.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't go into they don't expand enough into something that has some meat on it.
It's not, it never becomes a thing in itself.
Yeah.
Which also just made me, or I don't know, I'll get this in things of note. But you bringing up that, you know, again, it'd be better as a shorter film. I just kind of want to isolate that to the pacing itself.
Yeah.
Like, I want to use as a comparison the films it is homaging or spoofing or whatever, like the Brain Dead, Dead Alive, and Bad Taste. Not only is it, you know, those films sort of feel like they have the singular vision behind it or on display, but there's an energy behind it that comes from trying to enact that vision, from trying to reach that vision that gives it, like, keep using the word, relentlessness, pacing, where it's like either we are holding out for moments in a fun kind of suspense that we know is going to happen, and in the meantime, there's stuff happening that's actually making the filmmakers laugh versus just being a recycled joke. And also, it's sort of has this feeling like once then things are happening, it's like an onslaught of the mayhem, of the payoff, of the gags, or a gag being a gag because it's like something we hadn't necessarily seen, like, you know, in Bad Taste, you know, going through the bottom of the alien with the chainsaw, coming out the other side. I'm born again, you know, or all this stuff like that. Blowing up, was it the sheep with the rocket launcher? Like, stuff like that hadn't been done necessarily,
right.
You know? But this film, it's... Yeah, okay. I was trying to bring this all back on the pacing itself. Yeah. It just felt like we were just kind of... There wasn't enough... Not only was there not that all that stuff going on, but the... having no clear... We kind of already mentioned this. Having no clear progression of his going insane. Or like having no idea what he was reaching for. So he just had to finish these films?
Well, yes. So I think that's to a bigger point of mine, in that if you actually said, like, who's the protagonist? Who are we rooting for? Who do we care about? And what's the problem that we want to see be dealt with?
Yeah.
This movie is, like, very thin on all of those.
He has the wife that he loves. So what if he's going to get fired if he doesn't finish these films in time?
Right.
Or is the studio guy, like, what's his reasoning for needing to finish them so quickly? Like,
right.
I don't know.
So what's really happening is we just don't care.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we aren't given enough to get on board with whatever the problem or whatever's going on. And so it, you know, you see this is sort of indicative of writing not really knowing where they're going, in that the most annoying fucking character, Nick, the like gum chewing, hat wearing, ponytail,
typical American.
Yeah,
right?
whatever. That guy ends up essentially becoming the hero, but not until the third act. And so, like, to me, that's a problem. Like, he's the most shitty character, too.
Well, like, in those, I'm trying to think, like, okay, well, maybe there wasn't anything super clear, you know, in Bad Taste, Dead Alive, but
I feel like
but what is going on is that will this character make it to the end? Will they defeat the bad guy? Will they survive?
Yeah, no, I think that alone, the will they survive is what carries, in particular, Dead Alive. Like,
right.
So that's enough if you set that up. Because I mean, look, it's kind of, what were we watching the other day where we were like, holy shit, I think it was Last House on the Left, where it's like, and I was thinking about this, we need to, as the audience, I think in horror, one of the big things that we need is to experience with a character the problem, or at least be able to get on board with the problem, so that we can root for them, or we can hope for an outcome.
Right.
And you can fuck around with what the outcome is. You can play with that. You can defy it. You can do all sorts of shit.
So for this one, it could have just been he wants to return to his regular job versus having to edit these films.
Sure. I mean, yeah.
He wants to return to the normal, you know?
Right. And he can't do it. But like, we never feel like he is in his own conflict.
Yeah, it's because since again there's not a clear progression, we have no grasp or sense of, is this a situation that he can escape?
Right.
It's just sort of like, okay, I guess he's evil now and there's no going back.
Evil Dead does this, where, you know, Ash turns into a Deadite.
Evil Dead 2, yeah.
Right, Evil Dead 2. And we're like, holy shit. So we then get on board with the fact that, like, oh, he's a bad guy now, and we've introduced the other characters in the cabin enough to root for them to get away from him.
Yeah.
But we are still rooting for Ash on some level. And then they use a device that they introduce in the beginning, which is to have the necklace of his girlfriend show up, like he sees it and he's like, fuck. And then he has an internal existential fucking battle over getting the Deadite or the demon out of him. And he wins. And we go, fuck yes, he beat it.
Love prevails.
Right. That's very simple and does not exist in Evil Ed. Mm-hmm. And you could have. I mean, you have the whole interaction with his wife and his daughter. I thought, like, oh, great. The daughter's going to be the thing that, like, even momentarily brings him out of this insanity and, like, gets him back to normal. God bless you.
Thank you.
And then it does, like, they just, this is my point. They surface-wise, they just don't even scratch that at all. Like, you don't have to go far down that path. You could have it just be a moment, and by having the moment, we would get on board with it. We'd be like, oh, he's almost coming out of it, the insanity, and then it's more tragic if he doesn't.
Right.
And then by making it tragic, even a little bit, we care.
Right.
Even a little bit.
Because even at the earlier moments of him going crazy or whatever it is, it's not like he's ever struggling to have it not happen. It's not like he's like, I can't edit these films anymore, and then the guy says, oh, I'm making the stakes even worse, so you have to.
That's right. That scene is weird too, when he's like, I can't work for you anymore.
Oh, right.
And then the guy's like, your problems are not my problems. Get back to work or you're fired. It's like, okay.
Yeah, right.
I'd be like, I'm okay, bye.
Yeah. It's not, he should like he should have his own internal kind of like, oh, there's already this piece of me that's possessed, so maybe the only way I can get rid of it is I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know.
Or
something to go off of.
Like you're saying, if you're put in the situation where, like, make the stakes worthwhile. Mm-hmm. If you're doing a thing that your boss says you have to do and you say, I can't fucking do it anymore, then if there's no reason for you not to just walk away, there's no movie.
It never showed he was desperate for money.
Exactly. So give him a reason to not be able to just walk away. It's like any movie where your character is in a marriage that sucks and there isn't something preventing them from just being like, yeah, this sucks. I want a divorce.
Right.
Like, if you can solve it by sending a text message, that's a problem.
Or we empathize with them because they're their inner struggle is made known.
That's exactly right. Like, if there is one, we don't. What is the inner struggle of Ed's, story?
I don't think they thought of it in these terms.
Right. And I think there is a reason that they didn't think about it. And I think there's a reason for them not doing all of the things we're talking about.
Yeah.
So we'll get to it.
I just hated that SWAT team and the captain. They're just so lame. It was like, that felt like the moment where it was like, okay, I could see how this ties to maybe like, I forget if there's like a police or detective character in like one of these films it's referencing. Yet at the same time, it was kind of like trying to be its own, okay, here's our funny SWAT team. But it's just like...
with the Uzis.
Yeah, just terrible.
Do SWAT teams have Uzis?
I don't know.
Come on.
Sweden.
Maybe in Sweden.
But it was like... maybe that was an example of just the casting falling flat, too. Like, who the SWAT team members were and the head SWAT team. It's like, give them a cigar, and then it's going to be funny, maybe, even though it's... I can only imagine them just like forcing themselves to laugh and going crazy making this, like there's nothing amusing about it.
I just
was
rolled my eyes so hard.
It's eye roll inducing again.
It really is. It is a difficult and fine line to get parody slapstick right. And generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of slapstick. UHF does it, and I can... You know UHF?
It's one of my favorite.
I figured you would. It does it, and it gets it right.
It's because it does absurdity well.
Right. And it's got a good level of self-referential. Like, the cutaways of commercials work for that. And there's a variety of them, right? There's Conan the Librarian, and there's,
Raoul's Wild Kingdom, and Spatula City. Spatula City.
So all of those work to do a very specific thing in that movie, which is to give us a sense of where our lead character's brain is at. You could have done that with this movie. You could have... I guess they're kind of trying to do that, but the integration, where they're missing is the integration of the loose limbs stuff that he's editing. It's exactly what you said. And his visions are not connected. And UHF is a perfect example of connecting those two things.
Right. This should have solely been about, if they had to go with the loose limbs angle only, then it should have been like he became a hacker slasher specifically. But he becomes like, he's fighting demons and shooting Uzis, and you're just kind of like, what?
Right. Yeah. Bummer. What else you got?
You already mentioned it. I'm so glad you mentioned it. But the Nick character, it's just that kind of the Swedish view of Americans, I guess. But just like, God, I want to vomit just saying the words chewing gum. Like, it was just so gross. And just, you're right, like his hat turned backwards and like all slouched and stuff. It was just like, who is this guy? It's not funny that he's this. I don't know.
You know what I thought during this movie?
What?
Other than Ed, other than Ed, every other actor in this feels like the shittiest extra who thinks they're a good actor.
It felt like they were all their friends or acquaintances, Right,
and they think that acting is is like with quotes around it. This is acting.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't even, I don't know how you vocally demonstrate this, but I'm an actor, hey, look at me doing stuff, because I think at one point I said there's so much eyebrow acting going on, right? Like everything's like, hey, I'm acting, check it out, I'm an actor. That shit I fucking hate.
Yeah.
And I think they think that they are acting, that's like they're doing it right, and that infuriates me.
I thought that maybe sometimes that can become like you are then just kind of endeared to the person from getting some sort of genuine non-performance. It's just them on display. But that's not going to happen when you have egregious dubbing.
Oh my God. Right. Yeah, it's hurting itself.
Right. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like if you actually kind of heard the particularness of this character's Nick's delivery, then maybe it would kind of be like, okay, I'm at least being amused somehow.
Yeah.
But again, it's just like felt so. It was just indicative of their out of touchness, the filmmakers. Just that, like, I don't know, just to have that. Well, it's a haphazardness that it feels like when you sort of dub in fake American accents or whatever it is.
Well, there is a reason for all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like a filmmaker specific choice reason for all this. I don't know if we should get into.
I don't
things
know.
Of notes.
Not yet, but
okay.
But like
it's in there.
In Bad Taste, that whole film was dubbed, but it's. They retain their New Zealand accents, and it takes place in New Zealand.
I would have loved because they're speaking English.
Think how much it could have brought to this film if it was like Sweden set.
I would have loved this much more.
Right, and if they were also speaking Swedish.
Yeah, I mean, I would be fine with, because it is parody. I would have been fine with the actors with a Swedish accent.
Yeah,
speaking English. And trying to, you know what I mean? Like, I would have been fine with that.
Yeah.
But the overdub, it's rough.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good to move. I mean, yeah. You want to do things of note?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Things of note!
This should be interesting.
There was something that sounds like you were on the cusp of
yes.
wanting to say. Let's just start there.
So there's the filmmakers were the if you want to call it this, the point of this movie was commentary on the absurdity of the censorship in horror films in Sweden. Specifically, they made this to be like, middle finger, censorship board of Sweden, you're ridiculous. And so we're gonna make a ridiculous movie pointing at all of that. And so that's one aspect. So they have this purposeful sort of angle on why they're making this. And then layered on top of that, they're making choices to do homage. And so the dubbing was a choice to be like, look at how bad when we get a horror film from the States or from wherever else. Not only does the censorship board slash it up, like the example being when he's at, like, his job is a real job, and they're pointing at that, Ed's job. So the edit that he makes the first time he sits down, which I actually quite like this first loose limb scene that he edits.
Oh,
it's pretty funny. Where it's the girl in the red lingerie with sunglasses on.
Oh, right.
And, of course her boobs come out. And then the Dr. Killer creep ball is like drooling and everything, and he like gets her up against the wall, and then he just starts hacking her arm off. Then Ed edits that to just be her showing up, cuts everything in between that all the way to the point where the doctor is covered in blood. So you have no context of why he's even covered in blood. That, allegedly, from what I've read, is literally how the censorship board would force the edits to be for horror films. So they're making fun of that. That's kind of the point of this movie. And the overdub is an extension of that, because they would get these foreign films with these horrendous overdubs, I guess, into Swedish.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I think that's right. So it's to make a point. Does it serve the movie? I mean, I guess as much as any of the other things serve it, like homaging the Evil Dead or like quoting other movies, I guess.
Yeah.
But like ultimately, for my money, it hurt it.
Yeah. So Bad Alive, Bad Taste, Dead Alive. I kind of brought this up earlier, but I just thought it was interesting to try to unpack more. Like those films and filmmakers, they clearly like have their influences, you know. Peter Jackson has his filmmaking heroes, but it's like those are, he's not trying to make his own King Kong movie, you know, or he did. He literally did. God. but he's trying to do his own thing with bad taste, you know? It's like that's his first film that took him, you know, however many years to make, shot on weekends, you know, got the New Zealand Film Commission money. I don't know. It's just like they're genuine versus this film Evil Ed felt disingenuous. And I'm just trying to like think and break apart all the reasons like why that is.
I think a lot of that is potentially a little bit of lost in translation, and also that they had this broader goal. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that goal is fine, but it can't be the sort of driving force of the movie. Like, you still need to make a good movie.
So that actually helps a lot because you said driving force. It felt like all those films you feel a driving force of energy, which was never there.
Which is about the characters and the story, whereas this is sort of just putting that aside to kind of just episodically pay homage to things.
Which, right, and how you said like it's a larger goal. Like, I think that like a larger goal has to manifest on it has to manifest in every single like inch of the film itself.
Right.
It has to be in the blood of the film.
Yeah, it's like a good theme. You should not be bashing us over the head. It should just sort of exist within the essence of the story all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also just by them, this film feels like it's trying to recreate specific things,
which is cheap as fuck, dude.
Right?
It's like the lowest form of creativity.
And then I wondered too if part of what prevented them from from staying on that kind of surface level big picture, not infusing in every aspect of the film, is sort of the case of multiple filmmakers like making that not work out. Because it's like you do have a single director name on it, but sort of looking at the producer and the writers and the opening credit that says like a film by, you get the sense that this was more collaboration than it wasn't in sort of the higher sense.
It says a film by like 5 people,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. But I mean, on the official credits, it's like only director. But I think it's more accurate what it said at the beginning.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I thought of another example that's not. Sometimes that can work where it's such a cluster F that you get a Super Mario Brothers movie that had changing hands and directors.
I refuse to have this conversation with you. Super Mario Brothers is trash.
Nope.
Jump boots are dumb.
Nope. It's so. You get to, that's a good example of a movie, Super Mario Brothers, the movie, that
rest in peace, Bob Hoskins.
I know, I'm never getting the sequel. I'm bummed. But it like, that movie becomes such I use this word a lot too, but indelible. It's like, how do you even come up with it? It's like, it's beyond, it gets so specific because it's beyond a singular vision. You know, you have everyone trying to reach for this thing. But this was an example of when that doesn't work. And another example of when it doesn't work for me in modern filmmaking, I forget their names, but there's the film Turbo Kid and then the new film on Shudder, Summer of '84. It's a collaboration of 3 filmmakers who've made these 2 films. Both of those films had that sort of same problem where it felt like it never got past what they're homaging, and it didn't have that sort of singularness of what it was like running vision throughout. Yeah. It didn't have that. There's an example of when those are hurt for me.
Interesting, yeah.
I don't know if you've seen those.
I know of Turbo Kid. I think I started it and turned it off.
It's it's a case of like the things that happen in it. You know, again, like the moments are great. It's even some of the performances.
I think some
are great.
of the design is fun.
It's way better. I watched it and enjoyed it versus this film. This film
I
did not
enjoy.
And even Summer of '84, like it was kind of fun to watch it, but I still didn't think they were good movies in the end. And I don't know, yeah, it's just the other examples of when multiple filmmakers kind of prevent it from going below the surface.
I mean, you know, it's only speculation, but I can just imagining the fucking chaos of 5 people being like, no, but this, but yeah, no, I want that, and you know, just do this. And it's like,
because when you do that,
nightmare.
What else can you arrive at except a sort of whatever agreement you arrive at in that case is only going to be way up here. You know, it's only going to be something you can point to clearly.
Right, because you have to justify it verbally to somebody else or a group of people.
But
oh, fuck.
Good films that work, they work because you can't explain it verbally in so many ways.
And because you can just be like, just look, I know what I want. Trust me.
Yeah.
Let me do this.
Yeah.
We can talk about it later.
I think I know what I want. This feels right. Why does it feel right?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's my vision. Fuck off.
Or I don't really think taking ownership of a film like that has made sense. When you're like Tim, when you make a film, it doesn't feel like Tim am making this. You're just writing it down. The ideas of whether that shot looks better for you or not, it's not. Yes, it is because of who you are and how your opinions have been formed. Yeah. But the experience of it, it's not like you are, I'm Tim, I'm decide. I don't know. At least for me, it's.
Well, I think a lot of the time what happens, and for me, I've worked on getting people around me that kind of implicitly understand what I'm going for. Like my cinematographer, I barely need to even start a sentence, and he already has a good sense of where I want to go with a thing. Like he'll even say, you know, for example, at one point, I don't know, I was shooting this single subject sort of avant-garde thing, and we barely communicated. Like he was just sort of already on board, like. He would finish a thought before I even started to I don't know, say it really. And we'd be, and at no point did I feel like I had to sort of justify anything. It just was, it's like when you get the right people around you, you have a workflow that you don't really need to do a whole lot of explaining. You're kind of just like, oh yeah, we're over here now.
Yeah.
And it's working. But that's hard sometimes. Like finding those people is definitely not easy. You sometimes, I mean, I kind of lucked into it. I worked on a film with this guy like 10 years ago as an actor, and he was the cinematographer, and we became friends. So that's luck.
And it's much easier for me to like describe something with made up words, like to an actor or a cinematographer. Yeah. You know what I mean? How that kind of got that from what you're saying.
But the language and the sort of the flow that you get with the right people that's, you know, how you get stuff done a lot of the time.
I can say, you know, this shot was it just needs to be more squirby.
Yeah, see, I'll talk more in palette language or musical language, especially with actors. The musical language with actors, the palette stuff, and music with like cinematographer more. But yeah, I mean, when you have that, great. When you don't, it shows a lot of the time.
Yeah, I had this in something that worked for me, but forgot to mention it and realized it's actually way better in things of note or more appropriate. I thought it was interesting how this film, it did capture a kind of a last era of film editing this certain way. So it's like you have this era of filmmakers, Sam Raimi, Peter Jackson, Spike Lee, Linklater, Kevin Smith, et cetera, who are the last of the flatbed indie filmmakers, you know.
Wow, that's crazy.
And this felt, you know, just sort of the quality of the film itself, the setting of knowing it was mid-90s, it was kind of neat. That's literally the end of this era, you know, timeline-wise. So it actually was a really good, appropriate time to do something that sort of does pay homage in some regard, but again, just didn't quite
can you imagine doing this film in like 2005?
You can't,
It would be way worse.
So yeah, it just brought a little like, oh, when we're watching this guy Ed handle film things and the really old person carrying the film who's been doing it forever, it was kind of...
That is the whole movie, actually, in a way.
nice. I don't know, kind of commentary on that. Not commentary, but yeah, sure. You could pull something from the fact that it's set in this time. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna throw out just some things of note here. Blah 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 blah. The running gag. I guess I should have put this in things that didn't work, but the running gag of the SWAT leader guy, the nice tie, nice bed, nice door.
He says nice about everything.
Nice shot when he gets killed at the end. There are so the main references, obviously Evil Dead being the title reference. Sam Campbell, the movie producer, is, I think, a nod to Bruce Campbell, and Sam Raimi. What we talked about, the Deadite chase camera thing.
Yeah.
Obvious. When his wife is in the closet, that's shot exactly like Halloween. Through the slats, all of that stuff. The I'm coming to get you, Barbara reference. Don't you fucking look at me, which I had to look up. I was like, what is that
Blue
from?
Velvet.
It's from Blue Velvet. Dumb shit like the SWAT and Ed standing off at the end is sort of they do a little like do sort of attempt that's really wonky and shitty for good, bad, and the ugly. It's just like all those things, like you're saying, like they make you kind of cringe.
It makes me feel uncomfortable. Like it's as if I'm just sort of like drowning in insincerity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
cheap.
Well, what I thought, it's like this is an example of it's stretching too thin the limitations of what even works as parody. Like all of that, and I guess what I think is interesting is, are there certain types of films that are so sort of their own, like bottom of the trough kind of films?
Yeah,
like
Zombievers.
Right, like Zombiever, but you wouldn't. So would you do a spoof of Zombievers? You know,
that's a funny idea.
But
it would be shit. But
right,
like,
that's what this film felt like to me.
Yeah.
It's like you don't spoof Zombievers,
right?
And like the sort of like the Russ Meyer films, like those feel like they're so just their own kind of homaging and their own unique spirit things. Like that's a good example of maybe you could just get by sort of spoof homaging it, but I don't think so.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe in the hands of some fucking crazy.
I want to see
like,
Quentin Tarantino
genius.
Russ Meyer movie. You know, I
sure.
watch that. But then that becomes his own. That's a different case. What Tarantino does is he translates what he loves in old films for modern sensibilities.
Yeah. What were we saying the other day? We would love to see Tarantino do
a horror film. Oh, a Giallo, was it? Giallo?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck, that'd be crazy.
Mm-hmm. That'd be really good.
Holy shit. Oh, well. I mean, we did it. We watched it. Who recommended this?
This was a Instagrammer that I follow on our horror channel. Yep.
We'll look it up and maybe say his name when we figure it out.
We'll let him know. We didn't like his name's the Horror Doctor.
We said it. Oh, that's right. Yeah. We said it last week.
I gotta look for the specific post, what he said about it again. I mean, I think it's more, this is the disparity I'm picking up on, Twim, between us and a lot of these horror Instagrammers, is we don't profess to have this sort of complete, utter knowledge of horror like these people do.
No, but I've also, there's this weird thing, and I'm not this person, but I find a lot of the people who are self-identified as like hardcore horror fans really seem to love the very, very cultish stuff. Like stuff that like I would never in a million years fucking know even existed.
Right.
And I'm not sure what that speaks to.
Well,
like,
I think
why do they love that versus, and do they not love quote unquote mainstream stuff? I think
they love the mainstream stuff too.
Like, and when I say mainstream, I'm talking about stuff that we generally
more
don't
known
like either.
horror films.
So yeah, I don't know. There's a weird thing.
It feels like when it's Evil Dead, you say what it's about, you say the moments it are, and you go, oh, that sounds cool, that this movie exists.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you have such, as you said, deep, hardcore love of horror films, that's enough for you.
Yeah.
Just to be able to watch this film, have it be about an editor who goes crazy and has these, scattered good, moments, then you are essentially getting that still.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's interesting how, I don't know. I wonder if there's a novelty aspect to it as well.
Of just the lesser known films. You want them to be. Well, I can kind of agree with, even if we didn't like it like he did, it's helpful to have as part of the conversation as this conversation.
Oh no, I totally I'm welcome to it because like I said, I would never find this shit on my own. I just wouldn't. But watching it I think it's fairly enlightening.
But for all we knew, too, sitting down, why I put it there isn't because it was obscure. I put it there because I hoped it would be great.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I always hope.
Right.
That
so to clarify a position there, if
Yeah.
we've been getting critiques of doing obscure things, it's like, no, well, we're looking for good things, and how do we know what it is unless we watch it?
Right. Like, I would never have known that Tatsuo existed.
Yeah.
Right? And I definitely would never have watched it. Like, I don't know where that would have come into my life.
That was a great one.
But that movie, it blew my fucking mind. And I'm so glad I've now got that in my, catalog of things. So
the last thing of note that I had was, do you remember where we left off last time in my own internal struggle of, am I getting oversaturated with violence and horror?
Yes.
Talking about the serendipity and magic of the hat pull, deciding our next film and see how it's pulling strings for us. Well, I thought it was pretty noteworthy that we watch a film that's essentially about someone who's becoming oversaturated with horror and violence, just as I'm complaining, or I going through the same thing.
How the fuck does the hat know? The hat knows.
Right.
It's freaky.
It's like tarot cards pulling from the hat,
dude.
It lends it allows us to put a narrative.
Hang on.
What we're doing.
I gotta move around my crystals. There we go. Here we go.
Oh, around the hat.
Yeah,
right. We have the hat and an altar.
Yeah. Wait, I'm gonna burn. Let me smudge the room.
Get the hat. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know where I'm at now with it all. I felt like this could have been a good palate cleanser in a way of a kind of, because I want to see a good one again.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's an interesting thought. Like, what would satisfy us right now?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I love stupid, but not stupid.
Right.
This was stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I just want to go watch Evil Dead 2.
Right. I wanted to actually I had not wanted to revisit Bad Taste and Dead Alive until now.
God, I haven't seen Dead Alive in, like, fuck.
Yeah. I've
15,
never seen
20 years, maybe?
Meet the Feebles.
I have. Holy shit. A long time ago.
Yeah. Did you see his mockumentary? What was it about the early New Zealand filmmaker that, like, was the first one to invent color film?
No.
Silver. Anyway, That was pretty funny.
Cool. Well, shall we?
Yeah, let's move on.
Recommending.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to put a little asterisk next to this recommendation because I didn't finish it.
Okay.
But I will. And it's got some fucking like amazing shit in it, especially based on what we've watched. It came up because of what we've watched on Amazon Prime. It came up as, like, because you watched Planet of the Vampires, watch this. It's called Galaxy of Terror, and it is like mid 80s, I think, and it is.
You described it as between Alien and Planet of the Vampires.
That's right. Yeah. It's taking both of those things, which obviously both of those came before it, and trying to do its own thing with it. And it's got a little Dark Star vibe to it. It's got some low budget shit, but there are a few scenes in it that are fucking hilariously
I walked in
awesome.
for one of them, and it made me want to watch the whole film.
Dude. But it also has some real, like, why
and a good
is
cast
this movie still
too,
going?
right?
It does have a cool cast. It's got the guy from My Favorite Martian.
Yeah.
The woman from what was she from? It doesn't matter. You'll see.
Robert Englund.
Yeah, it's got fucking Freddy Krueger. So it's cool. It's goofy and homage-y, but I think it's actually trying to do its own thing with it in a fun way. Like it's got like puppet monster stuff going on because they had budget limitations, but they're like, fuck it, we still want things with tentacles, so let's just build them.
And what was this called again?
Galaxy of Terror. It's fun.
I need to rebuild my list here. I like to have more kind of horror related recommendations for you and all. But just pulling from other things that satisfied me watching recently. Well, Joe Dante, the filmmaker, was a big influence on me. He was the first filmmaker when I was a kid that I put together, oh wait, this is the same filmmaker. This is the same person. Gremlins, The Explorers, and then this one I watched, Inner Space. It was that was one I had given a big life break to revisiting, kind of maybe afraid it wasn't going to hold up. And then our good buddy Max was like, when was the last time you've watched this? Dude. I said, it's been since I was a kid. And he said, well, you should just watch it because it's like a film that he and I made. Or, you see it's in the same kind of, I don't know what we were trying to do. But anyways, it held up. I remember I watched it probably about a year ago, and it was just it was reassuring and made me feel warm inside that as an adult, it still had a magic to it, Inner Space.
Dude, that face changing scene is one of the greatest things ever.
When they're shrinking and like riding in the car, and it has that, so talking about UHF, maybe that's why I thought of it.
Yeah.
Kevin McCarthy from UHF and Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh my God.
It's so good.
It is so good. That's a fucking great one. I think I rewatched that, like, I don't know, 3 or so years ago.
Yeah.
It was like on Netflix
Any
or
Martin
something.
Short movie, that's a good movie too.
Yeah. I have a connection to Dennis Quaid.
Really?
In a weird, I mean, not really, but sort of. So when I was born in Bloomington, Indiana, which is where the movie Breaking Away was filmed, which was one of Dennis Quaid's first movies, if not his first. I don't think it was his first, but he was 18 or something like that. But I was a baby, and they asked in town to shoot the scenes with like a crowd in the stands of this bicycle race. They asked for locals to just come by. My mom was like, well, I've got 2 kids. I'm just hanging out with them. Like, why don't I take them and we'll sit in the stands and watch this movie getting made? So I'm in it insofar as like I'm a little smudge of white in my mom's arms, and you can barely even make out that it's her. Mm-hmm. But 1980, I think 80, it was filmed.
Wow.
My first movie with Dennis Quaid.
Called what?
Breaking Away. It is a fantastic movie. It's not my recommendation, but I love that movie.
You're trying to pull from the hat. Let's see. What are we watching next week, Tim?
We are watching this one. Get out of here. Here we go. Well, I dropped it back in. Does that mean I don't get to read it?
You don't know what it was? Shoot, Tim.
Okay.
Is that a different one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dead and Buried, 1981.
Dead and Buried, 1981. Great. I don't know about it. I don't know how it's there. We don't have to look anything up now.
I think I put that in there. I think it was on a list.
Great. Well,
cool, dude.
You can find us at dismemberinghorror.com. I am Ryan McDuffie. My Instagram is Mayor McDuffie. My Twitter is at Ryan McDuffie. And my portfolio website is ryanmcduffie.com. That's with an I-E, not a Y at the end of McDuffie.
And we're also on Instagram at Dismembering Horror and Twitter at DisHorrorPod. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram under Tim Aslin. That's my name.
Great. So thanks for joining us. Keep watching those horror films. I hope you have a friend to watch them with, and
keep sending us possible films that you'd like us to watch.
Submit.
We'll throw them in the hat.
Submit. We're
Hell
going to
yeah.
put them in the hat, and that's what we hope to do. We hope you want to hear us talk about them, and the ones that you want to hear us talk about, we'll watch.
And also, real quick, last thing, I think we need to go to the theater and see a movie.
It's been a while.
Yeah, so Us is about to come out. Do you want to do that?
Let's put that on our schedule.
So I think it's in a couple weeks it comes out. So the week before it comes out, when we record, we'll not pull from the hat.
Yeah.
And we'll say, that's what we're going to see.
We'll talk about it on off air and figure out how to schedule it.
So get ready, though. That'll come up soon.
Yeah, let's see Us. It's one to be excited about. I am excited about Us.
Me too.
Well, until next time, thank you.
Go watch Dead and Buried. See you next week.
Ha 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 ha!